Well, good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, where we'll be demonstrating document capture from Continia for Dynamics 365 Business Central, or as it's now commonly known as just as BC. So my name is Keith and I'll be your host for today. And I'm one of the client success managers here at PA with over 40 years of IT experience, with the last 16 here in Australia, working within the Microsoft ERP sector, helping client organizations maximize their business aspirations by achieving more with technology. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Richard Hensby from our partner Continia. Richard is an experienced Dynamics Nav and Business Central professional, with the last 6 years spent implementing and supporting the Continia suite of offerings. Richard will take us through today the Continia data capture structure. Our agenda, as you can see today, is learn how to automate accounts payable processes, create powerful workflows for faster approvals, streamline invoice processing and manage purchase invoices, automatically match documents to purchase orders, discover Continia's integration with Business Central. And then at the end, as I said, we will cover off any questions that have been asked during the session. So Richard?
Thanks, Keith. To set the scene, I'm going to run through a few slides and then we'll jump right into a demonstration of the product, a live demonstration that I've got set up. So on this first slide, we're going to define what document capture does and talk a little bit about how it's built. So at its core, document capture automates the purchase invoice and credit memo data entry function. And what that means is that instead of accounts payable clerks having to sit and laboriously enter invoices and credit memos and all the header information and the line information and look at the actual physical document and figure out what they want to key in and use what item numbers or GL codes, etc. They can just train the system once per vendor, per invoice layout, and then from then on, the process will be automated for them. It also delivers an electronic archive of processed documents, so they can be searched with free format text. So every PDF that comes in, it recognizes every piece of information that's on the PDF, and all of that information can be searched on later, not just the stuff that's been captured and put onto an invoice. And additionally, it delivers some enhanced approval functionality, in particular approval at an invoice line level. So traditional Business Central, the invoices get approved at invoice header level or invoice total level, whereas Business Central now, one invoice can go to multiple people because each of them are looking at different lines on that invoice because they've got responsibility for those lines and approving them. We're looking at controlling costs to make sure they're as expected. Document capture comes with some other enhanced approval processing. So approvers can now either approve within Business Central or via Continia's online web approval portal. And that's a specialized portal which just covers approvals. And in there, in the approval portal, they can get to that either by their phone, by their iPad or their PC. So it's mobile, wherever they are, they can get in and do their approvals. And we'll also have a look in the demo at the way approval flows have been streamlined. So in particular, where you've got a invoice and it's three-way matching. So invoice to receipt to purchase order. And all this comes fully integrated, built inside Business Central. So it's a familiar interface for the existing finance users. You know, there's nothing new for them to learn. It's not a system that sits outside and has a lot of interfaces. So the integration is tight. It's also built for all versions of Business Central, whether it be in the cloud or on premise, and for older versions as well. So for NAV versions on-prem, and even going right back to when it was called Navision, I think that may still be supported too. So to give you some context, the next few slides are going to step us through graphically what I'm going to be demonstrating. So we'll just move on to this one. The types of documents that document capture can process are paper documents, which have been manually scanned in by a scanner that's attached to the user's computer, emails which have come in with PDFs in them, and also e-invoices. So if a vendor has a computer system which will generate XML electronic invoices, they can be processed as well. And they're either processed by an OCRing, optical character recognition service on-premise, or optionally by Continia's cloud OCR service. So either of those can be used. And when the document actually arrives in Business Central, the accounts payable clerk runs through these steps. So the first thing they do is train it. First time they see an invoice from a vendor, they need to train it to find various things on there and to maybe tell it whether that vendor includes GST in their prices, or those sorts of minor tweaks. The system will do the main amount of training automatically, but then the accounts payable clerk finalizes those. Once they have, they can register that, and once they register a document, the document turns into an invoice, which can go out for approval. And then when that comes back, the accounts payable clerk sees a list of those invoices which have been approved, and they can batch post them. And archive sits here at the end of that, but actually the archive that we talked about earlier is available at any time. So as soon as the document has arrived, you can search for contents of that document in a free format manner. So when we look, that was a document flow, and if we look at the approval flow, an email goes out to the users maybe a couple of times a day listing all the outstanding approvals that are with them. And as I mentioned earlier, they can either approve in Business Central or via the approval portal. And that approval portal can be on phones, iPads, and PCs. And the actions that they get offered up are to either approve, reject, delegate, or put on hold. So delegate, they can forward it on to someone and ask it to come back to them once that other person's looked, or forward it on and ask that person to work on it. Putting on hold, they can put a comment on it, work on it later, and we'll do one of those in the demonstration. When they're looking at it, they get to see an event log. So if there's been any previous approvals or any comments or any other documents attached, then they get to see those while they're approving. They can also look at that document archive, that free format search. So if they want to go back and look at previous invoices for buying iPads to see what the prices were, they can go and search those as well. And then also they get to see all of the information that's been captured. So all the header and line information that have gone onto the invoice. They get to see on the right-hand side, the image of the invoice of the PDF that's come in. They get to see all the accounting, so GL codes and dimensions, and they're also able to add comments to the before they approve the document. They can comment on it, and finally they can drag and drop files onto it as well. So if there's some additional supporting information, then that information or that spreadsheet, Word document, whatever it is, can be dragged onto the invoice. So that's the end of my slides. This is the agenda for the demonstration that we're about to go into. So I'm going to show three types of purchase invoices. The first ones are have got a GL code. So we're going to capture a total amount, and all of that amount is going to go to one GL code. The next one, I'm going to capture a purchase invoice where we've already had a purchase order, and I've pre-prepared it, and I've done a purchase receipt for that purchase order, and we're going to match the invoice to that. And then in the third one, we're going to just pretend there's an invoice where there's no purchase order, but we want to capture all of the lines, either because they're going to be approved by different people, or because maybe they're going to different GL codes, or any other reason why you might want to capture the lines into the system. We'll then look at the approval side of things. So we'll look at approving via the web, via the phone, and within Business Central. And then at the end, we'll have a look and do the inquiries. So we'll navigate and have a look at PDF on a posted invoice. We'll see what appears next to the vendors, and we'll also do the free format search, which I've already talked about a couple of times, the archive. So let's just jump on over to my screen here. And this is the landing screen that accounts payable clerk will come to when they open up Business Central. So it's got queues here showing that things are waiting to be OCR'd, that they're now ready for import, or they're ready to register. So depending OCR, they'll just, if you send 100 invoices through, that'll just slowly decrement down from 100 down to 0, and they'll go in here ready to import. You can, as standard, just click on import files when you're ready to pull them in, but we tend to configure a job queue. Standard way of doing it, we just configure a job queue in the background to push those on through from ready to import into this register. So we're only going to be looking at purchase documents today. We can also handle other sort of documents, but we're going to concentrate on the purchase documents. So on this first one, I've got 3 documents here for the Lewis home furniture. And the first time I see it, I think I mentioned that we really need to go and we need to tell it to recognize the fields, and it'll build us a a template. So it's going to fill in this template number here and tell me this is my first template I've ever created. And this template is all about how I've trained it to recognize this document, the fields on this document. But it's done most of the training for me. So it's found Mr. Richard Lum, and it's got rid of the Mr. And then it's found in our system that Richard Lum is actually a salesperson purchaser. So that Richard Lum is filled in for us there. It's found the invoice number automatically. It's found the invoice date, found the due date, and it's also found subtotal and the VAT amount. And I apologize, this is a UK demo system, so we've got 25% VAT instead of GST. And then it doesn't know yet what GL account to put it to, and it's recognized that it's an invoice. So it's seen the word invoice at the top of the document, and it knows it's an invoice, not a credit memo. So I know that I like to code this to 8330, so we'll just go and code that here to GL account 8330, which is just a miscellaneous account. And do I want it always to be that? And yes, I do, because Lewis Home Furniture always goes to that miscellaneous account. And I've got a posting description which I can pick up there. So I'm just going to go and pick this up as my posting description. So I left click and drag across that to tell it it's some more information that I wanted to capture. So it didn't know to go off and get that because it wouldn't know that was my posting description. So I'm going to register that one. And when I register it, it becomes a normal, the sort of document that the accounts payable clerk would normally have created. So if I go process register, and it'll open up the invoice for me. So now I have a regular Business Central invoice here. And we can see it's got the code on there. It's got all the amounts, everything matches up. And I also get to double check it across here. This is an optional step showing this. I could set it up just to register this invoice and send it off for approval. But just because we're doing a demonstration here, I'm doing those steps manually. So you'll see me do this a number of times, register and send for approval. So that's been sent, and I want a few there ready for approval so that I can demonstrate the various parts of approval. So if this arrived now as an invoice, as an email, if this invoice arrives as a PDF and an email, it would automatically give it this template number. Because I've already got these three in there, it doesn't know which number to give it. So I'm just going to assign those numbers here manually. And then if I go and have a look, we can see, again, it found Richard Lum because it already knew about that. It's found all these things. And but the difference between the first time we did it is that it's remembered the 8330, and also it knows to go and pick up that posting description. So I'm just going to post that one as well. Process register. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go send approval request. So these templates, this template number one here has got all that training. So it's got that training to know where to find this. It knows now to find 8330. It knows where all these things are. So it's a unique template for this vendor and for this layout. And you can go in and you can change the way that behaves. So I'll just quickly show that. I'll jump into template card. And I'll say the first thing I want you to do for an invoice is create an invoice. But then I could also say here that once you've done that, I want you to submit it for approval. And it'll remember that for this vendor. So now this time, instead of me having to, so here I'll go process and register, and it says an approval request has been sent. And it still comes in and shows me this because I've still got it getting it to show me the invoice. But here it's already setting up pending approval. So it's just one small example of the sort of extra things we can do. So those first three were all going to one GL code. We didn't recognize any lines. We just took the total amount and sent it off to the to GL code 8330. This one sort of ratchets up the complexity a bit. With this one, we're going to recognize our fields. So it's the first thing we do. We'll do process recognize fields, and we'll see again. It's Richard Lum's been busy buying things, so it's recognized him again. It's got the invoice number, invoice date, due date. And I like to just do this when on the first time that it's done recognize fields, just to make sure it's picked everything up from the place I'd expect it to, but it's doing a good job. So it's picked up an order number this time. So it's picked up a purchase order number there. And these amounts are all looking good too. So what we want to do with this one, and because we've got a order number, we're actually going to go and match this invoice off to a purchase receipt. So if I go into match lines here, and again, this can be set up to be done automatically, but then it's hard to demonstrate it. So I'm doing this step by step to show you what it's doing. So here I can see that there's a lot of orders out there for this vendor, and they're just straight orders at the moment. And there's also some that have been receipted, and that's the one we're interested in, is this purchase order 1003. And at this point here, I want to just do my perform match. I can go and match them manually if I want to, but it knows to go and match all of that. It knows the total amount, knows what we're looking for on here, and it's gone and matched all those off. And when I come back to my document down here, it says fully matched with purchase receipt 107037. So if I have a look at my template here, I'll just look at the template card for this one. In here, you can set it up to automatically match. So instead of me having to key or click on those buttons to match it, it could have matched it directly for me. So we didn't have that in this case. So let's process this. We'll register it. And it's created me an invoice, and it's pulled in all of that information from the matched receipt. So we'll send that one for approval as well. And then we have just two more to do. So these are both for electronics. So again, the first thing we do is we go process recognize fields. It'll create me a template. It'll try and find everything on here. And again, it just knows what these captions might be, and therefore what it should go and look for. So invoice number. So it's got it wrong here. That should be the invoice number. So if I want to retrain that, I right click and drag. Yeah, I set this one up so that it would fail. So I right click and drag on the invoice, and then I left click and drag on the invoice number. So that's how we can correct things or teach it some extra things if there are other fields we want to capture. The invoice date is looking good. The due date is looking good. There's no order number on here, and these amounts are looking good as well. Now, this is the example I said earlier that I was going to have a look at one where I could capture some lines. So we'll drill down one level to the document card. And here I'm just working on that document number 5. And when I drill down to this level, I actually get the opportunity to capture some lines. So here we have an item number here, and this is a number over here. So in this case, I'm going to right click and drag to define where my headings are. I don't actually have to define where the data is. It'll just know, because it's column data, that it needs to look below this. So I'm going to right click and drag where my description is. Just pull this across a little bit. Capture the quantity in the same way, right clicking and dragging. Unit cost. And line amount. So now it knows where to find all of these fields. So this time when I do recognize fields, it'll know that it's got to go and find those for me. So I'll just drag this back to the left so we can see what we've got. So it's picked up iPad, mouse, and headset, but those things mean nothing to Business Central or to this Cronus customer or Cronus company that we're working within. So we need to teach it a little bit more here. So we need to say that we need to choose whether we want this to go into a GL account, an item, a resource, fixed asset. In this case, I know that my item number is item number 1000. It's my iPads. And I know that I want to put the mouse. I think I'm just going to expense that off to miscellaneous account, which we used earlier, 8330. And my headset, I'm going to put that in stock. So that's an item that I want to purchase and put into stock. And my headset is item number 8001. So I could have looked those up if I wanted to, but just to save time, I know what they are, so I'm just keying them in at this point. And then I have a look down the bottom here at my comments to see how I'm going. And really, I've just got one comment there, which we've had on a couple of these. So against this vendor, electronics, we've got cash on delivery set up, but the invoice date's 14th of the 4th, and the due date's the 21st of the 4th, which we've captured off here. And that's different from Business Central thinks it should be because of the the vendor setup is set up as cash on delivery. That's just a warning message, so we're not going to worry too much about that. So I'm going to register this document just like we did the other ones. So again, at this point it's not an invoice, but now that I've registered it, it is an invoice. And you see it didn't submit it for approval because that step that I set up was against the template for the other vendor. So this has just left this open for us, and it's captured the details and translated them to the item numbers and GL codes that I gave it. So we'll send that one for approval too. And then just to show that all our training has not been in vain, when we come through to this next document here and select the template, and again that template would have been selected automatically if this had just come in as an email, because we just had a couple there I needed to select it. But we'll see here that it has actually gone through and recognized all these things, and because I've already talked about it, taught it about an iPad and a mouse. If I go onto the document card, we'll see in this lines area it's already done that translation for me, and we'll see in the comments area that we've just got that same warning comment. So this one can just be registered again. So process register, and we will send it for approval. So that brings me to the end of looking at actually sort of capturing documents. They've moved out of this purchase open view, and they've moved into registered. So they're all still there, just exactly as we created them. Those templates are there for future use, but all of those documents have now been sent off for approval. So we're going to go and have a look at that approval. We will first look at approving through the, let me just check my notes. We're going to have a look at the web portal first. So if we go to the web approval portal, so this is one that could run on your iPad or run on your desktop when you're at home or wherever you happen to be when you're at work as well. So we've got a number of invoices here ready for approval, and I want to have a look at my Coolwood one first. And as I mentioned earlier, you get to see the full invoice over here. You get to see all the lines. This is the one there was a purchase order, and then we receipted it. You get to add a dimension code if you want to. So in Business Central, we've got regular sort of GL codes or chart of account, but instead of having suffixes, we use dimensions to subdivide general ledger codes. So we can put different dimensions on these because only I, as the approver, know what these should be. This list here, there's actually a list of 30 different products, or 30 different cars, but different brands. But this vendor has been restricted to just see these three, so that can be set up within document capture as well. What else do I want to do on here? So I'm not actually going to approve this one. I'm going to put this one on hold because maybe I don't have enough information, or I've got to ask someone else a question. So I'm going to put this on hold, and I'm going to select a reason code for awaiting external information. So these can all be set up in document capture as well. And I'll just put look later at airport. So what I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to call this, I'm going to pretend later on I want to have a look at this on my phone when I get to the airport. So I've saved that one up. What it's done now is it's jumped on to the next one, and I'm just going to approve this one. So when I click on approve, we go on to the next document up here. It says invoice 1005 was approved, and we'll just keep approving them. I do want to stop on this 4444 because for this one I've got a little bit of an extra information. So I've got a little attachment thing there, and on my desktop, if I've remembered to put it there today, I've got background info. So that's a dummy spreadsheet of some sort that I just want to store against this for future reference. And I also want to maybe put a comment in there. See attached spreadsheet for breakdown So I'm going to approve that one as well. So I'm on here as Richard Lum, approving all of these. And some of them you'll see are going invoice was approved because they're within my delegated authority. I'm allowed to, but then this one has got to go up to Annette because it was only sent to me because I was the purchaser and I maybe have a $500 or $1,000 delegated authority, but anything that's above that needs to go off to Annette to have a look at. And we'll sign on as Annette later on and have a look at Annette's ones. So it's now come back to the one which we put on hold. So it says remove on hold there, but we don't want to remove that. We want to leave that there. The other thing that we can do in here, I mentioned briefly, is you can forward things. So we can approve it and forward it for someone else to approve. We can forward it without us approving it, and we can forward it and ask for it to be returned to us, all with giving a reason. So those are all extra approval functionality that Document Capture or Continia delivers to us. So I'll cancel that and make sure I leave that on hold. I'll just go back and have a look at see if I've got any outstanding approvals, whether I've approved them all. No, I've just got that one which is on hold. So I'll leave that one as it is, and I will just minimize this. So the next thing we're going to have a look at is we're going to be Richard Lum. Richard Lum's made it out to the airport, so he's going to have a look on the mobile web approval. So this is kind of an emulator of a phone. So you can see here that I've got the Coolwood document here. I can see the full, if I had that as a true phone, I could use my fingers to scan and or to zoom in and out on that. I can click on the lines, I can see all the detail on there, and I can also see any comments. So I should be able to see, look later at the airport. So I could, if I'm looking at any other document, I can put it on hold. I can reject it or I can approve it, but I want to approve this one as well. So we want to push all of these in. And that's another one that's gone off to Annette Hill to have a look at. So I'm going to drop back into Business Central, which I've still got loaded here, I hope. Yep. And I'm back here, and when I'm logged on over here, I am actually logged on as Annette Hill. And as Annette Hill, I want to go and have a look at my approval entries. So this is 3 versions of the same thing, right? First, we looked at the web approval portal, then we looked at them on the phone. And now I'm looking at them just if I was a Business Central user and wanted to work on them in Business Central. So when I'm within Business Central, I can see these documents in here. I can see what I can click on them to go and have a bit of more detailed look at them. I can see down here what purchase lines have been captured. So I think it was this one here, had a number of lines. I can see any comments, and I can see, if a hold was put on, I can see when that hold was taken off. So from here, I can do the same as you can on the portal. I can forward things, I can reject things, I can put them on hold, and I can approve them. But I want to approve these because I want to go through and get these all posted so that then they could be paid. So let's have a look. What do we want to do now? Looking across here, as we've been going through, we haven't jumped back in here, but as we've been going through here, we had some open purchase invoices at one stage. They were submitted for approval, and now they're sitting there as released because they've been approved. And at this point here, I can see them all. They're all sitting there in green. And because they're all in green, that means that they're all released. And I can see on the right-hand side that there's some background info against this one. I can see the invoice. If I wanted to go and check those out, I could. I haven't got Excel on here, so I can't open that up. But what the accounts payable clerk here would typically do is they just go in and post the batch. If they want to, they can override some parameters on there. But if not, they can just go through and post those. So that posting is kind of a regular sort of thing that you'd normally do. You'd go into each invoice and you'd post it, and at that point it becomes a vendor ledger entry ready to be paid. So from here, we're going to go and have a look at the archive, what sort of history we've got and what background we've got on things. So we'll go and have a look at those posted documents first. So in the posted documents, in the posted purchase invoices, if I sort this by descending invoice number, I should get to see my ones. So we've got our Coolwood and Lewis home furnishing ones here. And if I just click on that and go into it, so as a posted document, I can see the original PDF over here, and I can also see there's 2 attached files. So one of those attached files is that invoice, and the other is the background document that I had attached to it. So that's really quite useful, you know, being able to go and look at the invoice and how it's been coded and see the physical invoice at the same time. Then we'll also have a look at what the vendor list looks like. So if I go to vendors, and we'll just filter this down to the vendors I know that I've used. So let's go and filter by vendor number. So I've used 30,000, 40,000 and 61,000. So here, when I go and have a look at this vendor, I get to see all the invoices that have been processed against, are now held against that vendor. And each of these will have the same. So if I go in here, I can see those 2 invoices. And you can use the regular Business Central navigation to go off and find vendor ledger entries and drive all the way back to the actual invoice itself. But you know, just you can very easily go and find these invoices here. So the one last area that I want to go and have a look at before we move on to any questions is the document search functionality. So in here, I'm going to go and have a look for, I saw that the word Deerfield appeared on some of the documents. So I can see that it's on these 3 invoices. I can go off and I can show the file. If I want to see, I'm just going to open that up on my browser because I haven't got Adobe on here. So I can get back to that document. If I want to, I can go back to the document card, which was the document. This was the point where we actually captured the document, so I can see what training was done and how that was done. I think yeah, we'll just come back from there for now. And I can also see there's another document in there for sales, which has got Deerfield. Also says Deerfield on it. So this search is looking across all the different types of documents that I can pick up, because I can also process sales orders through here. But if I just restrict that to purchase and do find again, then I can only see my purchase ones. And probably more usefully, I think it was iPad. I don't think it was iPad. iDashPad, I think it was iPad. Yeah, so if I wanted to find wherever I bought an iPad before, then I can do a find on that and search out the iPad. So that brings me to the end of the demonstration. I'll just flip back over here and we'll pass control back to Keith to handle any questions that may have come in.
Thanks very much, Richard. Yes, we did get a couple of questions coming in. I know we were going to be pushed for time, but if we can get through these, let's try to do so. So the first one is, should each supplier template require to be trained?
Not well. The only thing that you'd normally be training on there is what GL code to put things through, as we saw in that demonstration. Apart from that, once you've trained the first invoice, the next time it comes in, it'll know exactly what to do. So no, it's only really just the first time for that particular vendor.
Okay, thanks very much. The next question is, how does it deal with mixed GST, i.e. GST and GST-free?
Yes, it caters for that. So it understands about that, and it respects, because it's built inside, it respects any posting groups that are set up within the system, and any items or GL codes that are, you know, GST, whatever posting groups they fall into, it respects that. So it works with them very well.
Okay, so what would happen if a duplicate invoice comes through?
It tells you. So it straight away, one of the messages in the comments down the bottom is, I've already had this invoice. Even if it hasn't been posted yet, it recognizes that that invoice number has been sent through before.
Okay, there's one other one here that I've just come up with. Does Document Capture offer any functionality around OCRing any documents other than purchase invoices and credit memos?
Yes, it does. So in that demonstration, you may have seen on the way through that there was some sales documents sitting there. So if your customers send you a PDF, which is a sales order, then it can recognize those in exactly the same way as we were recognizing invoices and create sales orders in your system for you. And it can also be used. I haven't actually seen it used in real life, but it can also be used to capture general ledger journals as well. Most people with a Business Central now just cut and paste those in there. And the other thing that it does do is, if you just have maybe some contracts where you just want them to be automatically attached to a customer or to a vendor, but you don't need any data capture as such, you just want to file these things against that vendor or customer, then as long as they've got the vendor or customer's name on them, you can set it up that you just fire those through to an email address and they'll automatically get OCR'd, but only from the point of view to identify them and then filed against that vendor or customer.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Our last question that I have here is, our purchase orders don't have freight on them, but invoices arrive that match the PO, but also have freight on them. Can Document Capture add freight to it for us?
Yes, it does. So in that, we did one there where we were actually matching to receipts. And so if that invoice had actually had a freight amount at the bottom, or even just as an extra line, in amongst the other lines on the invoice, then you can train it to recognize that freight. You can tell it the GL account for that freight, and it will actually then process that and pass that on into the invoice.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the questions. Richard, could you step on to the next slide, please? Okay, so who to contact? Initially contact your account manager, or if you're in doubt as to who your account manager is, my details are on the screen. Please contact me and I'll make sure that the inquiry goes through to the right person. So just want to take the opportunity to thank Richard for joining us today and running through Document Capture from Continia. I think you've all agreed that it's not a complex application to go through, and it's quite simple and quite logical the way it goes through. Also, I want to thank everybody for taking the time today to join us, and look out for the links coming through from our events team, which will point you back to the on-demand video, and any outstanding questions that we haven't answered, we would actually answer back through that questionnaire as well. So please stay on the line for a little while longer. We will ask you a couple of questions from our end of webinar survey. Once again, thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today.